My name is John, and I am 52 years of age. My wife's name is Serena, who is 47 but looks much younger. She's a beautiful woman, tall, has long black hair, pale skin, and a great body. She maintains her looks by working out and eating well. We've been married 24 years with our 25th anniversary coming up in a month before the discovery. We have two boys, Michael and Ben, both married and just starting families of their own. Both have remained geographically close to us, and we see them often. I worked for a drug manufacturer in New Jersey that produces some ethical drugs, but we also make generics, and we are one of the largest manufacturers on the East Coast. The FDA closely monitored us, and it was critical that all drugs were accounted for at all times. Recently, our FDA inspector found some discrepancies in our paperwork, and our audits were more frequent now and would continue that way until he decided we had our house in order. Because of my position as VP of Compliance, I've been working very long hours and traveling twice a month for the past 8 months to our warehouse many miles away to show a presence. When he inspected our drug inventory, it was difficult work, but I was training 3 additional compliance techs to take over the load. It was starting to cause problems in my personal life, but we were very close to recertification, and I had started to back down on my workload. I had decided that I was going to retire just as soon as I had the new techs up and running, and our certification was either complete or in the works. I want to do that by our anniversary. I hadn't told Sabrina as I wanted it to be a surprise. I was able to find some time at work for myself one day. So I was downtown trying to find a jeweler to do a special job for me. It was for our silver anniversary, and I was going to do something special for Serena. I found the little jewelry shop I was looking for across from the downtown down the alley off to the side. A friend that used them for a special locket he had made for his wife recommended them to me. I had something similar in mind for my wife as my anniversary present to her. I talked with the owner, a Pakistani, who had immigrated to the country over 15 years ago. His English was perfect, and I told him what I wanted. I had a 1.15 carat diamond ring that I no longer wore, and the stone was a perfect clear white. I wanted to have it reset into a necklace for my wife because she always loved the diamond. He looked at the stone, made appreciative noises, and pulled out some white gold and sterling silver settings for my choice. I picked one that had 3 small diamonds surrounding a large stone that would go in the center. It was magnificent. We agreed on a price, and I gave him the ring. He took a picture of it on his scalp and made a copy for me for security. It would be ready in about 2 weeks. Perfect. As I walked back out to the main street, I glanced over to my right and saw Serena coming out of the hotel lobby, afraid that if she saw me, she would ask what I was doing. I ducked back into the alley and watched as she hailed a cab. I was surprised since I knew of no plans on her part to come downtown and certainly no plans that involved the hotel. As I watched, I saw Bill exit the hotel and come up to her side. He said something to her and she laughed. She got into the cab and left as Bill walked away. Bill was my close friend. He and I had met when I first joined the company and he was our realtor. We became friends and he and his wife Sally were frequent visitors to our home. We had known them for just over 10 years, and we'd taken a few trips with them before things got a little hectic with my job. As the cab pulled away, I wondered about what I'd just seen, but decided that maybe she was planning something for me on our anniversary, and Bill was helping her. While I had no idea of what they could be doing at the hotel, I decided to wait and see how it played out. I would raise some questions at home tonight and see what she said. Serena and I lived in a large 2-story colonial in a very nice part of town. I had done quite well in my job and had a comfortable salary. I had also inherited a large sum from my parents with good advice from my investment counselor. It had grown to almost twice that amount. Serena and I had decided that we would not touch it until I decided to retire. I want to do that now. And the time looked right since our 2 children had graduated from college and moved on to their own lives. The house was way too big for us, but we loved it and continued to live there. I loved coming home to it and to her. She always had a drink ready and waiting, and we had a routine that included just talking about our day. I thought tonight might be very interesting. So I walked into the kitchen from the garage and put down my briefcase. I shed my jacket and tie and put them in a hanger in the hall. As I made my way into the room we called the library, even though it had few books, I found Serena waiting as usual. We greeted, and she asked how my day went. I responded that it was very productive, and I was able to take care of some things I wanted to get done, and that I finished all of my work for my upcoming trip to where the warehouse was located. She said she was at home all day and just did some cleaning and straightening up. I was immediately alerted to her comment about staying home all day. Why would she say that when she was downtown? Just about lunchtime? She was not very good at lying, so I decided to push it and see her reaction. I asked if she has seen guilt lately, that I needed to tell him something about a question he asked me on some drugs, and I thought he was coming by. She said she hasn't seen him since we went to their place, which was about a week ago. Now the lies were beginning to compound. At this rate, she was going to make a mistake if I pushed it. So I decided not to. I was far too concerned at what I began to suspect was happening. Serena and I had not made love for over 6 months. I tried to initiate it several times lately, and each time she had quietly turned me down with some excuse that meant she didn't want to have sex. The last time was Sunday evening, and she pleaded a headache that came up suddenly at that time. I hadn't discussed it with her for fear of making her angry. Now I thought maybe there was another reason. So I suggested we have Bill and Sally over for dinner that week, Friday night. But she said she doesn't think she wants to have dinner that week. Maybe we can plan it for the following week. Now she knew I had to go on my trip and I hated to plan anything for one of those weeks. So I told her I have to travel next week and would rather do it this week. I then asked if she had a disagreement with Bill over something that I don't know about, that she seems to be uneasy when I mention his name. Now she was really uncomfortable. So she stood up and left the room saying something about the bathroom. I considered her reactions and answers to my questions, and I knew without a doubt that she was guilty and that Bill was involved. I decided not to push her again when she came back into the room as she sat back down. I asked if she has thought about what she wants to do our anniversary next month, and that I thought of having a party here at the house with our friends Bill and Sally, Justin and Phyllis, and maybe the kids and their wives, and that we could have it catered so it would be no strain on us. She said she hasn't even thought of it yet, so she doesn't know, and asked if that's what I want to do. I told her that I think that might be a good idea, and it might be fun, that we both haven't been having much fun lately. And I don't know why, does she? She asked what I meant, and what kind of fun, that I've been working so hard, and we don't have a lot of time to do much with my trip every other week or so. I then asked about our love life and said, I haven't been too tired for that. But she's not been in the mood for the last 6 months, and I don't know what's going on, but she seems to have no interest in me anymore. She replied that she's not been feeling well, and I know that, and that it was me that wasn't in the mood. She was angry, and not because of my attack. She was angry because I was right, and she wasn't going to tell me why. I now almost knew for sure. I told her I was sorry, and I'll back off. I guess she have her reasons, even though I don't know what they are. And I'll make all the plans for the anniversary dinner next month, and she can just relax and let me do the wording. I apologized about the crack about our sex life, and told her I'll just wait until she tells me when she's feeling better. With that, I got up and left the room. I went into my study and turned on the TV. There was nothing on I wanted to watch, but I needed the time to decide what to do. I decided that my trip next week was the key. She and Bill would be too cautious to do anything. I was home since she was now alert to my awakened suspicions. She certainly didn't think I knew anything, but she couldn't be 100% sure. The next day was Thursday, and I went into work and made a phone call to a friend of mine in the electronics industry. He and I had worked together on some projects, and I knew him well enough to confide in him. I told him what I needed, and he told me what to buy. I called the supply store he recommended and gave them the order. It was delivered to my office that afternoon. It helps to have friends in the right places. My plan was simple. I had 10 voice-activated bugs, all small and innocent-looking and easy to plant. I also had 2 receivers, one single-channel battery-operated that had a range of up to a mile, and one with a range of just fewer than 300 feet. The short-range one would go into the house to monitor all the bugs, but one in each room. The other bug would go into her purse, and the receiver would be in her car. That way, if she went anywhere in her car, the bug would pick up her conversations in the car, and anywhere she carried her purse and the receiver in the trunk would record up to 5 hours, add up to a mile away. I placed all the bugs that evening, while she went to the store and set the recorder up in the workshop in the basement. I turned on the radio in the spare bedroom and went down to the workshop to listen. Perfect. I thought that I would have to wait until she went to bed to plant the one in her car and her purse. Fortunately, she fell asleep early on the couch in the living room, so I glued the bug in her purse right then and there and took the recorder to her car. I set it up in the trunk and again did a test. All worked perfectly. Now I was ready. Friday went by at a snail's pace. I wanted so desperately to listen to what was happening in the house, but knew I would have to wait until after dinner to check. I was divided about what I expected to hear. On one hand, I wanted nothing to be on the tape. I wanted my world to remain just as it was, dull, boring, but safe, and with a wife who was still true to me in our marriage. On the other hand, I expected to find that was not the case, and that she was cheating on me. That got me to thinking, why would she cheat? Why had she suddenly stopped her love life? What was the problem? And why wouldn't she come to me to see if we could solve our problems? We had been married 25 years, and as far as I knew, the first 24 had been wonderful years for both of us. We were very much in love, and we had a great life. What had changed? Maybe nothing had changed, and I had simply been unaware of her actions. I thought about it all afternoon, but found no answers. That night, our dinner conversation was non-existent, and we missed our "How was your day" conversation earlier. She was very moody and seemed to be in another world. I was keyed up and nervous about what I was going to find later. We passed the evening without any more than the mandatory exchanges. She finally said she was going to bed early and went up the stairs to our bedroom. I waited for about an hour and walked up the stairs to look in on her. Her breathing indicated sleep, and I went downstairs to the shop. I looked at the recorder and noted it had recorded something. I rewound it with a touch and pushed play. At first, I heard the sounds of the phone ringing. It was very clear, and I knew the recorder was working perfectly. I heard Serena answer. From then on, I only had her side of the conversation, but I could read between the lines. It went like this. "Hello? Why are you calling me now? What do you want? No, you know I won't meet you today or tomorrow. I won't do anything now until he goes out of town. Yes, same time and place. Goodbye." After that, there was nothing else except a call from one of our kids that she took later that morning. There were no further calls that afternoon, and she didn't leave the house, so I didn't need to check the car recorder. I didn't need to check anything else, period. I stayed away from her as much as possible that weekend. I was so angry, deep in my soul, that I knew I had to avoid her. I knew that she and Bill would meet again, and in spite of the pain, I needed to convince myself that I should confirm what I already knew and not stop them. I had enough to know for sure what they had done, but I needed more to convince a lawyer. I wanted to wait until after our anniversary party to tell her what I knew, and I had a plan that would make this anniversary very special. The following Wednesday morning, I told her I had postponed my trip and would be traveling next week, but that it would be a short trip, and I wouldn't leave until late morning and would be back by dinner. I then told her I wanted to do some things to get ready for the party and will be back later. I watched her smile at me and say something about looking forward to the party. She waited for another hour before she finally went to the phone to call Bill. I didn't bother to listen since it was being recorded. I'm sure they made plans for a different time. The day went very well since I was in a great mood and I found myself singing. I rarely have felt so good, and it caught me by surprise to find that this was likely the end of my marriage. And why did I feel so good about that? That thought cooled me down and the pain returned with a vengeance. I wondered what I was going to do next. I went to the basement and rewound the tape for that day and pressed play. I heard Serena's voice as she called her lover Bill. It was something like this. "Hello. He just told me that he would be changing his schedule for next Wednesday. He's leaving later and he'll be home earlier. We can still meet at lunchtime, but I have to be home early in case he's home earlier than planned. I don't know why he changed plans. He didn't say other than to do some things for the anniversary party. I don't think he knows anything. You would certainly tell me if he did. He wouldn't keep it to himself. I don't know, but I meant it when I said that. We have to end this. He may not have to travel much anymore. We will have to talk later." The rest of the conversation was just like this, with nothing worth keeping on the tape. I arrested and reset it to 0. So Serena was going to end it, but it was already too late. I was hurting again as I walked back upstairs. I would keep listening and go from there. For the next 2 weeks, I kept to my plan. She and Bill kept their meeting for that following Wednesday. I couldn't wait. When I came home and went out to her car while she was setting the table for dinner, I got the recorder out of the trunk and took it downstairs. I checked the counter and noted that there was 2 hours of tape used. I was sure that it would be very interesting. I couldn't wait till I could listen to it. After dinner, I told her that I was working on some things downstairs and would only be about an hour. She just nodded, since I usually spent very little time there anyway. She was just sitting down for her usual evening knitting. I listened to the tape and was rewarded with an hour of them ducking each other and her doing some things that I considered to be low-key. But apparently she enjoyed it. It seemed that Bill was as unimaginative as he was stupid. I listened to the first part closely, and then let the rest of it go as more of the same. What I heard was actually rather dull. For the next few minutes, all I could hear was some grunting and groaning and the bed squeaking as they went at it. I listened as my heart grew heavier, and I listened to the sound of my marriage going down the drain. I could never forgive this from either of them. The tape continued for almost a half hour as they continued in the same vein. I couldn't understand what she was getting out of this. Our sex life was far more interesting than what I heard that day. At times, she actually sounded like she didn't even want to be there with Bill. I shut off the recorder and rewind the tape to be safe. I dubbed it and kept one copy in my safe downstairs and the other copy in my briefcase. I thought I would extract some excerpts from some of the phone calls in that meeting and make a demonstration tape for later. I went back upstairs and tried to go on with the evening as usual. I felt pain just being in the same room with her. I looked at her several times, but she looked perfectly normal. I guess she was now so used to cheating on me that she felt nothing when we were together. There was one surprising thing that happened just 3 days before the party. As I listened to the tapes that evening, as usual, I heard the sound of the doorbell ring. Bill came to the house, but I only heard some of the conversation since Serena kept him at the door. She was yelling at him and kept saying, "No, not here, not at my home, never." Anyway, I told you we were through. This continued for a few minutes, and I finally heard the sound of the door slamming and Serena storming back into the house, cursing out loud. Sounded like Bill was wanting more and more, and she didn't agree. During those weeks, I contacted my lawyer and made sure the divorce papers were ready. I maintained my silence to her. I spoke only when I had to and tried to avoid any time alone with her. She finally noticed my reticence and commented on it a week before the party. She said, "I haven't said much to her lately," and asked if something was bothering me and if she did something wrong that made me mad at her. I told her I don't know and asked her if she thinks she's done something that would make me mad. She said, "Of course no," and asked why I would think that. I said, "I told you some time ago that we had some problems, but you wouldn't talk about them. You just got angry and yelled at me. That's been your answer for everything. Yelling. I just hope you haven't done something stupid to get back at me or to try to hurt me in some way." She started to respond, but couldn't get the words out. She finally broke down and started to cry. I told her I'm sorry if I made her cry, that I was just letting off steam and I know she wouldn't do anything like that. And I trust her with all of my heart and soul. I told her I love her too much to ever hurt her, and I hope she believes that. She just wiped her eyes and looked at me sadly. She didn't say anything to answer me and remained quiet. She finally went to the kitchen and the subject was forgotten. We spoke a little after that and things remained tense between us. As for the anniversary party, it was planned for Friday night, a day before our actual anniversary. Friday was best for most of our friends and for our children. It was catered, so we had little to do other than dress for the party. We were together in our master bedroom about an hour before the party. I had decided to end my avoidance that morning in anticipation of this day. I asked if she was going to wear the beautiful blue dress I bought for her the previous year. They love her in it, and it shows off all of her charms, both in front and in back. I did love her in that dress. I bought it for her when she saw it in a window and commented on it. I bought it the next day and she was thrilled. She said she planned to and that she loves it too, although she didn't look as nice in it as I say she does. But I bought it for her. And this is our anniversary, so she thinks it's appropriate. Then she asked what I will be wearing. I told her it's just a shirt and tie with a sports jacket, that I didn't want to distract anyone's attention from her. She blushed with pleasure and smiled for the first time in a long time. I wanted her to smile and be happy for the anniversary party. I wanted this anniversary to be remembered long afterwards. The first guests were to arrive at 7 o'clock, and we were dressed and ready by 6:45. I looked at her in that blue dress and I choked up. Tears came to my eyes as I looked at her. I had loved this woman for almost all of my adult life. She had been my life, and I was about to lose her. The pain was so intense that I had to sit down for a minute before my legs collapsed. I wanted to give her my gift now. The more wonderful things she had to remember from this day, the better. I told her that before we go down to our guests, I want to give her my present now. And I wanted her to have it for the party tonight, so I went to the dresser and pulled out the gold box the jeweler had given me. I took the necklace and moved behind her to fascinate about her neck. She moved to the mirror to see herself. She said it was absolutely beautiful and thanked me for it and said she loved it and will treasure it forever. She turned to show me and moved to give me a kiss of thanks. We shared the moment and moved to go downstairs. As I followed her down the stairs, I thought of what I had told her. It was true that I did love her. That was the sad truth, and one that I had the most trouble with over the past weeks. I knew that while I loved her, I couldn't forgive her betrayal and her failure to confide in me and try to save our marriage. She turned her back on our marriage vows, and on me, and turned to another man, a man that I trusted and respected, and who I would have done almost anything for. That betrayal from two of the people that I trusted most in this world was so great that I found myself struggling for breath. Each time I thought of it, but when I thought that, I listened again to the tape of their afternoon together and found the strength to do what I planned on doing. Everything seemed to be in place and the caterer was ready. We expected 8 others, including our 2 children, as well as Bill and his wife, and another couple we spent time with. as luck would have it. Bill and Sally were the first couple to arrive. I shook hands with Bill as Sally went to Serena and embraced her. These were two of our oldest friends, and this evening should be a time of celebration. I just didn't feel that much like celebrating. But I had no choice. Bill congratulated me and said I have the best of everything, a beautiful home, wonderful children, and a beautiful wife. And what more could I ask for? I just thanked him and said, Serena and I have been very happy for the last 25 years, but things are not always what they seem, and he knows what I mean. With that, I turned to Sally and held out my hands for a hug. She was cute, but had grown heavy with the years. She once was a beauty, but now was simply a typical dowdy housewife, overweight and plain. She congratulated me and wished us more years of happiness. I thanked her and said, I wish I could count on more years together, but that may not be in the cards. I said this to her quietly so that only her could hear me. She looked at me in surprise, but I just shook my head to let her know that now wasn't the time. She took Bill by the hand and led him away to the bar for drinks. I watched them go and turned to look at Serena. She just stood there looking at me and asked what I said to Sally to make her react like that. I told her to just enjoy the party, and we'll have time to talk later that tonight. I just want to enjoy our friends and our children and that this is our 25th anniversary, and we have had 24 wonderful years together. At that minute, the doorbell rang and we were ready for the next guests. Our son Michael and his wife Julie came in, followed by Justin and Phyllis, and our other son Ben, and his wife Carrie. We quickly became immersed in the congratulations of our friends and children. Things soon became chaotic, and Serena and I were separated to mingle with groups of people waiting to talk to us about our party, our house, and our anniversary. The evening went quickly, and we had a wonderful dinner, planned, catered, and served by experts. Everything was perfect except for three of us. During the evening, I watched Bill and Serena. They circle each other several times, but were unable to find a minute alone to talk. I saw her finally grab his elbow and draw him into a corner. I watched as she spoke earnestly to him for a minute. He had a huge smile on his face that quickly began to fade. He listened and quickly glanced up to see me watching them. I looked at him for a second and turned away. I don't know what happened after that, as my son Michael accosted me to talk about our plans. I was vague and told him we hadn't really made any. I kept myself occupied with Justin and Phyllis and my sons and their wives as long as I could, until it was time for dinner. It was announced, and we all filed in. I held back until Bill and Serena had both entered. Seating arrangements had already been made, and my daughters-in-law flanked me on both sides, while our sons surrounded Serena. It was a wonderful dinner. After dinner was finished, I stood up to give a toast to friends and family. I had planned my speech carefully for this occasion. I tapped my knife against my wine glass for attention. Once all faces were looking toward me, I told them I wanted to take this time to thank all of them for attending this very special occasion. I used the opportunity to raise a toast to everyone in attendance. Finally, I said, I want to raise a toast to my beautiful wife, Serena. Everyone looked toward her direction, so all backs were toward me as I deliberately set my glass down without sipping. Only Serena could see me. After the dinner was complete and people were sitting around in the family room talking with dessert, Bill came over to me. He looked concerned. He said he didn't know what's got me upset. But Sally and Serena have both asked him what's up with me. I told him nothing was bothering me, and I asked, why does he and the ladies think something is wrong? And what have I done to make them think that? He said he doesn't know what they think, but I have been kind of out of sorts with him that evening, and that if something was bothering me, he would like to talk to me about it and maybe try to help me. I just told him there is something that I could use his help and advice with. So if he and Sally are free tomorrow morning, about 8:30, they should come over for some breakfast and we'll talk. I could use Sally's input as well. I know it's early, but it's really important and I would really like his help. He said sure, they can come, but I should give him a hint and he can keep a secret if that's it. But I told him not to worry, that it was job-related. But it is a surprise and I would like to tell everyone at the same time, and I'm not even going to tell Serena tonight. He finally agreed, accepting that he was going to get nothing more out of me tonight. I clapped him on the back and moved away to speak with Ben. I watched Bill talk first to Sally and then to Serena. They seemed to think that I had a surprise concerning my job, that I was keeping, and Serena seemed to relax considerably. The party was winding down, and the guests were all preparing to leave. I circulated the room and spoke with everyone, saying goodnight and thanks. I was anxious for the evening to end since it had been painful to me from the beginning. It represented a life that no longer existed. Bill and Sally were the first to leave, followed by Justin and Phyllis, and then Michael and Julie. My youngest son, Ben, and his wife, Carrie, were the last to leave, and they spoke with Serena and then left just before Bill and Sally left. Sally came over to me and said, If I want to talk before tomorrow, I should please call her. And if there is a problem, she's willing to help with this. She gave me a hug while Bill looked on saying nothing. I thanked her and said, I certainly will let her know if I need someone to talk to. I then told her I'll see them both tomorrow, and she nodded and left. Her simple statement of caring caused me more pain at that moment than anything Bill and Serena had done. The problem with all affairs is that innocent people are always the ones to feel the pain the most. I had made arrangements with the caterers to take away any perishables and come back about 10 the next morning to clean up. They were just finishing up when I walked into the kitchen. I looked around for Serena, but didn't see her. I asked after her and was told that she had said goodnight and gone upstairs. I waited a few more minutes till they left and then turned out the lights. I had a few things to do in the den, and then I went upstairs. I walked into our bedroom and saw Serena still dressed, sitting in one of the two chairs that comprised our sitting area. I walked over to the other chair and sank down heavily. I looked at her and felt nothing but pain, no anger, no desire for revenge, just deep, crushing pain with difficulty. I smiled at her and said that I thought the evening had gone well. She returned the smile, but I could see the concern on her face. She asked if she could ask me something that concerns the party, and I told her to go ahead, that she's always free to do so, and that a husband and wife shouldn't keep secrets from each other. She asked why I set my drink down when I made my toast to her at the party. I told her I don't know and asked what she thinks. She said she really don't know, and I haven't said anything to her about doing something wrong. Then she asked if she has displeased me in some way. Once again, I said, I don't know. Then I asked if there's something she has done that would make me angry with her. But she said no, and that she just tried to think of what it could be. But she just don't know what's wrong. I told her I'm sorry, but I don't quite believe her. And I think there are some very serious problems in our marriage, but I am too tired to talk with her about them tonight. And I'm going to sleep in the guest room and we could talk the next day. With that, I rose and walked down the hall to the guest room before I lost my own composure. I had earlier moved some things in there, so I went in and closed the door. I had never slept in the guest room in all the years we had owned the house, nor had I ever locked my loving wife out of my bed. The pain of doing that was almost more than I could stand. I checked my briefcase for the things I would need the next day and found them all present. I undressed, turned out the lights, and lay down on the bed, knowing I wouldn't sleep much that night. About an hour later, I heard a small knock on the door and Serena's voice asking me if she could come in. She knocked again, but I didn't answer her, and she eventually stopped and went back to our bedroom. I lay there with tears finally coming, and I fell asleep, dreaming bad dreams. I awoke at my usual time of 645 but decided to stay in bed a while longer. I usually got up and was downstairs by 7:15 for breakfast, but I wasn't hungry that morning. I had no appetite. I remained in the room until I heard her go downstairs and then went into the bathroom. I went back to the room and remained there until almost 8:15 and then went down with a heavy heart to face her. When I walked into the kitchen, she was sitting at the kitchen table, not moving or looking up as I entered with false bravado. I said, "Good morning. Is there any coffee? I could really use a cup with that." I walked over to the machine and poured a cup of coffee that had already become rather thick. It had been made hours ago and was now bitter, but I drank it anyway since it seemed appropriate with my mood. She still hadn't said anything, so I walked to my seat across from her with the morning paper and my cup of bitter coffee and waited for Bill and Sally to arrive. I didn't tell her they were coming, so it would be a surprise to her when they showed up as I folded my paper ready to read. She looked up at me and asked in a very quiet voice if I suspected her of something and if that's what this was about. I saw now that she had been crying, but I really didn't want to get into it until her lover was here. But if they weren't on time, I couldn't avoid it. I was just about to say something when the doorbell rang. She looked up in surprise and wiped her face before going to the door. She opened it to see Bill and Sally standing there in a surprised tone. She asked what the couple was doing here at this time of morning, but Bill answered that I was the one to ask them to come over last night. He was surprised that she wasn't expecting them. I think Sally noticed her and asked if she was all right, that she looked like she'd been crying, but she said she was fine and welcomed them in. She came to find me to see what I had done and asked why I invited Bill and Sally this morning and what was going on without answering her. I walked into the hallway to see them and welcomed them in a booming voice once everyone was seated. Bill and Sally sitting side by side on the couch and Serena sitting in her favorite chair, looking frightened. I walked over to my briefcase and pulled out two 8x10 manila envelopes. I moved with them to the center of the room and faced all three of them. I told them, I have given this a lot of thought and I have some surprises for each of them. I said, I've been working some very long hours and traveling more than I should have, but I felt it was necessary and that there were a lot of people depending on me and I couldn't let them down. But I hired 3 new guys and they are finally able to handle the job by themselves. It has been my plan to retire just as soon as I felt I could leave, and that time is now. And that a week I resigned from my job and told myself it's time to rest. Serena then asked why I didn't say anything about it, that she would have supported my decision, and that she knew that my job was getting me down. Bill chimed in as well and said, I don't have to work for a company that doesn't care about what's best for me and let them try to do without me for a while. I told them I'm glad to see that they both support my decision and that I was planning on taking my wonderful wife on a trip, beginning on our 25th anniversary, and that I had booked a flight to Miami, and from there we would pick up a sea cruise. Serena then asked, I meant by I was planning on taking her. I paused a moment. This was it. There would be no turning back once I did this. That was when I dropped the bombshell. I told her I just thought that it would put a strain on her meetings with Bill at the hotel on Wednesday afternoons if she wasn't going to be here immediately. All 3 faces were fixed on me now, and this was the moment of truth. Now, that was out in the open. I walked over to the table and pushed the play button on the recorder sitting there. I had made a tape with excerpts of their conversations. I thought the first few words of their last Wednesday meeting would be most appropriate from the small speakers. We heard Serena's conversations with Bob. I turned the tape off and watched the faces of the 3 people staring at me. She looked like I had just slapped her across the face. She went still, and her eyes wide open. I had never seen her as pale as I did then. She fell down into the chair with her hands over her face. I heard her say in a soft voice, Oh, please, God, no. I looked to Bill and saw a look of shock on his face as well. But more interesting was the look on Sally's face. She was furious. Serena was now sobbing openly, and she was looking at me with eyes filled with tears. She asked how long I've known and said I should let her explain herself. Sally jumped up from the couch with a look of anger and fury on her face. Bill also stood and turned to Sally just as she let him have it. She slapped him with her open hand as hard as she could and just glared at him as he staggered back. The smack sounded like a crack of thunder. Sally was on a roll, and Bill looked as though he had just swallowed something rotten. She turned on Serena with real venom and said she has just ruined 2 marriages, and that Bill is a lousy lover. Anyway, I decided I had better get back into the conversation before Sally killed somebody. I asked Bill to get out of my house right now, and I never want to see or speak to him again, and that he was supposed to be my friend, but he stabbed me in the back. I told Sally that I have something for her, and that she will want to take. It was a complete record of phone calls between the 2 of them, and it is very graphic in some spots. It should help her if she intends to divorce him. So I handed her a bulky 8x10 manila envelope. She took the envelope and stormed out of the house with Bill trailing along behind her. He seemed complete, confused, and lost. I really hoped Sally would make his life a living hell from that point on. I turned to Serena, who had been standing still, sobbing and watching the whole sorry thing between Bill and Sally. She must know by now that she had destroyed Bill and Sally's marriage. I congratulated her and told her Bill and Sally were 2 of our oldest friends, and she has succeeded in destroying both of their lives, and I hope it was worth it. And that Sally was a wonderful, kind woman who didn't deserve what she and Bill did to her. She continued crying, saying, I have to let her explain. She said, I've been so busy, and she was so alone, and Bill was only trying to be a good friend and that they just took it too far and that it won't happen again, and I have to forgive her and let her make it up to me. I waited patiently till she finished. It was no more than I expected from her. I told her that after I discovered her affair, I did a lot of thinking. I went through days of pain because of her betrayal. I wondered what she was capable of and whether she had done this before with others. I wondered whether I could live without her, if I were to leave her. And I wondered about the boys and what they would think. She cried and said, We don't have to tell the boys, and she has never done anything like this before with anybody else. That she and Bill only met a few times and only the last 2 months or so, and I have to believe her when she says she loves me and wants to be with only me. She added that Bill was just there when I was gone and he complimented her and the way she looked. And he was so friendly and that she was so lonely and he was there for her. I told her I understood what she did, but not why she thought it was acceptable to do it. And I could have forgiven her if she had come to me and insisted that we try to find out what was wrong in our marriage. I could have accepted it if she had confronted me and insisted that we go for counseling, but she never bothered and she never tried to fight for our marriage, even when I asked her about it. Now she just turned to another man and gave him everything she promised only to me, and I can't forgive that now or ever with that. I handed her the second of the 2 envelopes. I told her these are divorce papers. I had them made out last week after I quit my job, and that she'll be well taken care of. I told her I wanted the divorce to be simple and quick, and that if she doesn't contest it, I'll leave for the house and a nice sum of money. But if she tests it, I'll use everything I have from her affair in court, and I will fight to take everything and leave her with nothing. Serena fell to her knees with her head down and tears coursing down her face. She was screaming, "Please, John, I'm sorry. Let me try to make it up to you. You have to give me a chance to make it right." I then told her I was leaving for what was to have been our anniversary trip, and that I left instructions with my attorney on how to reach me and how to handle the divorce. And I do not intend to see or speak to her again, and I will call the boys and let them know how to reach me. Finally, I said I have written a letter to each of our sons, and I have told them exactly what happened and how she betrayed me. And if she fights this divorce, I will send those letters. But if she accepts my terms, they will never see them. But in the meantime, I will tell the boys that she and I had some problems and that our marriage is over and we have grown apart and decided to separate. And I will trust that they won't think too badly of me. Serena was now completely shattered. She had dropped to the floor and lay there sobbing with her arms over her head. I looked at her but couldn't feel anything. I could only remember her words to Bill as they betrayed me in that hotel room. That memory was enough to give me the strength, turn away, and walk out of the house. I could still hear her sobbing as I walked out the door of the house we had raised a family in. I had the tickets to Miami and reservations at a hotel, and enough money to last me in style for the rest of my life. I intended to make the most of it. I wanted a new beginning, and I hoped with time I could get back. I had lost my innocence and my trusting nature. I was so very tired. I was tired of people who claimed to be my friend and then fucked me behind my back. I was tired of trying to maintain a broken marriage when my wife couldn't even tell me that there was a problem, or let me know that we were in trouble. She put her own pleasure and needs ahead of mine. She ducked another man for reasons only she knew. I was tired of expecting trust from those I loved. None of them had been honest, and none deserved my trust. I had treasured my friendship with Bill, and he betrayed me without a thought. I had always thought that my love for Serena was unconditional. But I found out differently. You can't love unconditionally when the other person changes the rules. I shut the door on 25 years of my life and walked out to my car and drove off to begin the second half of my life. The first half had not been all bad, but it had ended badly. Maybe this time would be different. I had no idea of what I would be doing in the future, but I would certainly a different person. I had learned some valuable lessons. No longer trusting, no longer taking things for granted, no longer working for someone else's benefit. I would take care of myself from now on and let others take care of themselves. As I pulled out of my drive for the last time, I looked back through the rearview mirror to see Serena run out of the house, look at my departing car, and then collapse in the driveway. I slowed the car to watch as I felt some sense of pleasure. Maybe she had really cared. Maybe she cared enough to feel the pain that I had been living with since I found her out. I took my foot from the brake pedal and pushed on the gas. My future was waiting. In the end, our divorce was finalized and everyone got what they deserved or not. Sally and Bill didn't come to a resolution either, and I still keep in touch with her occasionally. And that's the story of how my marriage of 25 years came to an end. Thanks for watching. Please share and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Take care.